Hello everyone, it's Denise. So I'm on here to take you guys for my walk with me again, and I have a couple things I want to talk to you guys about, and it's a story again. What happened with me, and it's one of those stories again I didn't want to tell, but I feel God wants me to get on here and say. So I'm not going to get into too much detail about certain things, but I'll just give you the gist of things. I know I've been telling you guys bits of my story and that. So remember I told you my dad died because of a witchcraft attack when I lived beside that witch, right? With my parents before, right? And, so anyway, when all that gang stuff happened, with me, right? So before my dad died, I was in a really bad spot somewhere in Canada, and like I told you guys, I was gang raped and all that. Ended up in the hospital. It was really bad. So, anyways, because like I'll admit, like my parents had a rough upbringing. Do you know what I mean? It was really bad, their upbringing. So, growing up with my parents, it was rough and chaotic, and I don't hold anything against my parents because I know it's demons and how they were brought up, and it's choices we make too, right? But anyway, so it wasn't good living with my parents, like, because they were always fighting, or I was always fighting with them, and it just wasn't good. And I can admit I wasn't perfect either, right? But anyway, I'm just trying to figure what to tell you guys first here. So, not going to tell you exactly why, but like it was abusive with my parents, and I hated my dad. I love my dad, but it's like I hated him most of my life because of something that happened before when I was younger, and but maybe a couple years before he died, or a few years before he died, when I was really clinging to God around this time, I was really taking it serious with God the best I could, and God started showing me that my dad had a really good heart, and I was meditating on God a lot, and he was bringing stuff that happened to me when I was younger, and it was really traumatic and bad, and but God brought me to a place where I truly forgave my dad, and stuff that happened amongst me and my parents, it was bad. And anyway, I'm not going to get into details about that, but anyways, I wanted to get close to my dad. Sorry, this is emotional, guys. It's emotional. Sorry. I wanted to get close to my dad for once in my life, right? And the enemy wouldn't allow me to before he died, so that was really hard. Not going to get into details about that, but the enemy, through people, wouldn't allow me to get close to my dad before he died. So that was really hard on me. But a few years before my dad died, God started showing me how much of a beautiful heart he had. He wasn't really this monster, you know what I mean? He was just full of demons and messed up. Like, bad stuff happened to my dad too, right, when he was young. So anyway, when all that gang stuff happened with me, I was in the hospital after the gang rape, and I was in danger, and my dad put his life on the line and come and got me, and even went into debt to come and get me. So I ended up moving back home with my parents and that, but they were always fighting, and then things weren't good between me and my mom, and it just wasn't good, you know. And so remember I told you we lived beside that witch, and she was involved with that coven, right? Well, my parents were always being attacked by witchcraft through her and the coven she was involved with, but every time I moved back home, it got even worse. It's like the devil and her hated me even worse than my parents. Like, it was bad. So the witchcraft always amped up when I came back home with my parents. And anyways, her and the coven they were involved with, they were doing like all this like weird stuff with birds. They were putting stuff in the lake, some ritual. I don't know what they were doing, but things got really bad. And I I was in hiding at the time because of gang members and that, right? And plus, so anyways, things got really bad. And like I said, the abuse at home was bad. My parents were fighting, and it had to do with me too, and it just wasn't good. And so that alone, I know I was there for a time, which was good, thank God, because I had nowhere else to go at the time. But it was just really chaotic. But I had a really bad feeling. Remember I told you guys God started speaking to me, right? But I heard God tell me, you got to get out of here, and you got to leave before the 1st of the month. And that was less than a week away, okay? And I'm thinking, what do you mean, God? Like, where am I going to go? Where am I going to go? What do you mean? But mine is hearing from God. I had a bad feeling, guys. And like I told you, I was seeing that my neighbor at the time in the coven, she's involved with doing all these weird rituals and stuff around the lake. And it was getting crazy. So I was thinking in my head, okay, mine is hearing from God, whether this is God or not, right? Because like I said, there's a lot of witchcraft coming against me, so I didn't know what to think. But I was thinking in my head, okay, mine is hearing the voice of God. I have a bad feeling. And even minus the bad feeling, it's really bad here with my parents because of them fighting, and just it wasn't good. I was in my room all the time, just it wasn't good. So I'm hearing the voice of God tell me, you got to get out of here. You got to get out of here before the 1st of the month. And I'm thinking, and I'm saying, God, if this is really you, you better keep confirming, because where am I going to go? Where am I going to go? I have nowhere to go. I don't hang around with anyone. I don't have anyone who I can call family, right? So, anyway, he kept giving me sign after sign it was him. And it wouldn't leave me, and I had such a bad feeling. So the night before I left, my mom found all my luggage in the shed. She started flipping out. And I got in a fight with her. And I left. My dad, it was heart-wrenching because he was on the phone. Because he already knew what happened with me, with the gang members and all that, right? So he was on the phone trying to get me to stop. He was scared for me, thinking, like, where's she going? And So anyways, I'm not going to tell you guys where I went, but I took a bus somewhere with my luggage. But I'm thinking, God, like, have I lost my mind? I'm hearing your voice tell me to go here, and I have nowhere to go. I tried to reach out to a church to help me. I tried to reach out to other places to help me. My nerves are shot, I'm going to admit. I ended up linking up with people down there. I started drinking and doing drugs again. My nerves are shot. I thought, okay, have I lost it? What's going on? But at the same time, I had a bad feeling. Mine is hearing this voice, which I believe was God, but it wasn't 100%, right? So I ended up partying really bad. I ended up with this guy down there living with him. And he was really abusive. He was literally beating me up, like, bad. It was bad. So I thought, and I'll admit, I didn't have to get into the drugs and alcohol down there, but my nerves are already shot because I was in hiding from gang members. And then, plus, having I was worried about my dad worrying about me, and it was just a lot. So my nerves were shot. I'm still traumatized from the rape. So yeah, I was on drugs and alcohol again. I was with this guy. It was abusive. It was really bad. So I thought, did I really hear from God? Like, yes, it wasn't good for me to be at my parents because it was always fighting, right? And then the witch is beside us, and it was just really bad. So not even a week after I left, the cops came to my parents' door looking for me to try to drag me into court concerning the gang members. I'm not going to court against these gang members. I'll have a bullet put in my head. I'm not doing that. So God got me out of there, because I'm telling you guys, if I would have went to court against these gang members, which I'm not doing that. I am not doing that. They send people, they'll follow you, they'll off you. I'm not doing that. So soon as I heard that, okay, because my dad contacted me. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you guys this. So before I left, God told me to tell my dad, do not tell anyone where I am. Do you mean it? And God kept telling me to tell my dad this. It doesn't matter who asks you where I am. Promise me you won't tell anyone where I go. And my dad promised me I won't tell. And not even a week later, the cops were there trying to drag me into court against this gang member. And like I said, if I would have showed up to that court case, I would have had a bullet put in my head after the court case, I'm telling you. So my dad remembered those words, and he told the cops, I don't know where she is. I don't know where she is. She was here for a little while. I don't know where she is. Okay, so when I heard that, I said, okay, that had to been God, because if I would have been there, I would have had to go to court. My family would have been in danger. I would have been probably dead. Who knows? My family probably would have been dead. So, anyway, so that was the first sign that was God telling me to get out there. Okay, so I thought that maybe that was the only reason. Okay, so anyways, I'm with this guy. It was really bad. Like, we were drinking heavily, driving around. It was really bad. It was really, really bad. So that's when I realized that had to been God, because if I would have went to the court case, I'm telling you, it would have been bad. So anyway, 3 months later, my sister called me crying, saying Dad's dead. And I'm like, what do you mean Dad's dead? He's under the truck at the house. He's dead. Mom called me. I think he's dead. I'm like, what do you mean he's dead? What happened? She goes, he was working under the truck, and the truck fell down on him and trucked him around, crushed him, was dragging him around and crushed him. And I said, well, is he dead? She goes, I think so. The ambulance is there, or they were on their way or something. And I was like, what is going on? So anyways, wasn't long. They came and got my dad on the way to the hospital. He died. So apparently he was under the truck. He was under the truck fixing it. He was under the truck fixing it, right? And I guess it fell off the ramp, and it fell down on him and drug him around the property. My mom tried to go out and help him, and he ended up dying. He didn't survive. Guys, if I would have been there, which is already bad and traumatic enough just thinking of it, okay? If I would have been there, I would have seen that. And I know that was God telling me, you gotta get out of here. You gotta get out of here. And the point of this story is, sometimes God's gonna tell you to do things, right? And like I said, always make sure you get confirmations, because he kept giving me confirmation after confirmation. It was him speaking to me, right? But I was freaking out, because I was thinking, where am I going to go? What do you mean? What am I going to do, right? If God's telling you to do something and it doesn't make sense, guys, it could mean life or death. You gotta listen to him. Yes, be careful, but you gotta, if you feel God speaking to you and telling you to do something, because God taught me this when he first started speaking to me. He goes, if I tell you to do something and it doesn't make sense, you better do it, because it could mean life or death. Well, that was a good example. So after all that happened, I knew it was God telling me to get out of there. So, and even before all that, even like a couple years before my dad died, my God had me praying and fasting that everyone in my family would make it to heaven. And it's like he was preparing for me for my dad's death in a way, you know. And my dad was dealing with bitterness and unforgiveness with people and the neighbor and all that. And before I left, God kept telling me, go watch a Jesus movie with your dad. And we would watch these movies of true stories about forgiving people. And I just know it was God speaking to me. Do you know what I mean? It's like he was preparing my dad to go. And he, right before, these dogs around here. So, and I know my dad's in heaven to this day, because, when I would have a moment and break down and cry and saying, I miss my dad, right? I would always hear it like the Holy Spirit, like God say to me, he misses you too, and he looks down on you from heaven every day. And every time I have a meltdown and I hear that, I start sobbing, and it's not like a normal sobbing, it's like I'm getting healed or something. So there's all these like signs and stuff, do you know what I mean? But anyways, that's part of my story. I feel God wants me to go home now. But I felt he wanted me to get on here and tell you guys that that's another part of my story that's been heart-wrenching and that. But like I said, doesn't matter what God's telling you to do. It doesn't matter if it's fasting. It doesn't matter. what it is, even if it doesn't make sense. Just get your confirmations. Even ask for 2 to 3. He will give you them. Because like I said, it doesn't matter. God's not a cruel God. You know, it just, if God's telling you to do something and it doesn't make sense, do it. Get your confirmations and do it. Because that's a good example of, you know, it was scary taking those steps of faith, leaving and having nowhere to go, you know. And yes, I didn't make good decisions when I left because I was already a mess in that. Because like I said, the rape and all that. But I'd rather go through what I went through than witness that. Or be drugged to court and then murdered, or my parents murdered. So anyways, that's what I felt to get on here to tell you guys, is just be obedient to God, obey the voice of God, and take it serious, guys. Time is short. And this world is evil and wicked. Anyways, I love you guys. God bless.